Welcome everyone to the Road to One. Today we have a little bit of a different guest. We have Rosie Noel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be a different guest on your show. I'm always honored to be a non-subject matter expert in whatever technical field on these types of calls. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, so the reason why I wanted to have you on is because, when I was growing up, I always heard these people having these self-discovery journeys or whatever. And to me, those always seemed kind of dumb. But after talking to you and really
Tell
getting
me how you
the
really feel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But going through this whole thing with you and having our one-on-one coaching like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, it's really changed how I have approached life, not just business, but also personally as well. So I wanted to get to know your story and talk about what Clifton's strengths are. So, Rosie, who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? Yes. So yeah, my name's Rosie Noel. I am a coach and I focus on things like mindset and Clifton strengths. So a lot of whenever I refer to myself, I still have to find a better way to refer to myself. Some people call me a mindset coach or a personality coach or even a life coach. I've been an executive coach. I call myself a strengths coach. And when I do that, people are like, oh, are you like a personal trainer? And the answer is like, yes, but for your
Yeah.
mind, not for your body. Um,
Mhm.
so yes, but I coach a lot with people where I help them understand what their natural talents and abilities are and help them learn how to not only turn those talents into strengths, but use them intentionally to achieve their goals or get around their obstacles, etc. So that's a big I have worn a lot of hats in the coaching industry, but I always come back to using CliftonStrengths as my primary tool to help people build out that foundation of understanding what they naturally do well and how they can incorporate more of that into their life.
Very cool and super powerful. How did you get into this strength coaching?
Great question. So, so this and whenever people ask me this question, I'm like, how far back do I take you? It was 1985. But
Um,
no, so I will say my whole life I wanted to be a teacher. And so I ended up, and all different types of teaching I was interested in, but I ended up getting a degree in teaching high school math. And I went the math after student teaching, like, oh my goodness, I have so much respect for teachers after being just a student teacher. I was like, this is so much. I got burnt out just from student teaching. And so I was like, let me explore the math route rather than the teaching route because I don't know if I can handle teaching and all of the demands, like mental, physical, emotional demands it puts on you. And so I went the math route. I was working as an underwriter or as an actuary in the healthcare field. So different type of underwriting, right? And most actuaries work in some type of insurance field. So I was working in healthcare and I did that for a while and I was just miserable. And I kind of learned, okay, well, I'm good at math. I'm good at teaching, but is that what I want to do for my career? And I was finding that it wasn't energizing me. Specifically like the actuarial side. My mind was very stimulated, but it wasn't doing more than that. And so I moved into different types of consulting. I was doing actuarial consulting. I moved into more like strategic healthcare consulting. And same thing, kind of found that there was just an emptiness there for me. And so it's like, I don't get it. Like, I'm good at this. And it's funny. So when I was 30 years old, I was like, I guess I got to be a consultant forever. Like, there's no way I can change careers, right? And I'm 39 now, and I look back and I was like, I can't believe I was so afraid of transitioning away from my consulting career. Something I had done for what, like 8 or 9 years, and you have so many years ahead of you in your career. But like when you're younger, right? It's just like your mind is your perspective is different. And so
yeah.
I ended up going to get my coaching certification. And eventually, within my organization, though I was doing consulting, I told them, okay, I want to be a coach. I am more energized by helping my coworkers learn how to be the best versions of themselves every day or my team, right? I'm much more energized by doing that than I am by doing my consulting job. And so I was like, oh, I can have a job where my coworkers are my clients. And So I told them, I want to do coaching. I'm getting my certification. They ended up paying for it and creating a job for me within the organization so that I could stay because I was planning to leave. And so I worked as an executive coach and I worked in talent development. So I did a lot of, it was like back to my teaching roots where it was like building out curriculums and learning programs. And whether it was somebody fresh out of college or a senior leader, I was building out programs and trainings to help them grow and develop as consultants. And so that was great. I did that for many years. And through my corporate career, got introduced to CliftonStrengths. And we ended up deciding to roll it out within our organization. And we were 10,000 employees. So it was a big push to roll it out within the organization. And so it was really cool to get to see what it's like to introduce that at scale to leaders and to teams and et cetera. And so through that, I was like, this is just so powerful. I was seeing the results that it was getting. I was coaching one-on-one on it and incorporating it into my coaching there. And so I ended up making that such a big focus area of my coaching. And that eventually led me to leaving my corporate job at the end of last year and focusing exclusively on coaching. I still do some consulting on the talent development side as well, because there's so much of business. When I coach with people on strengths, it's almost always it's applications to your personal life, but it's almost always applications to business, right? Like
Mhm.
how am I showing up with my team? I've hit this roadblock or I'm in a rut. What I'm doing isn't working, or I have this goal and I want to accelerate toward it. And so it's been really fun to do that with entrepreneurs. And I still consult as well with people to help them understand how to either bring this to their teams or leverage it within their businesses and their organizations. So I don't even remember the question you asked me at this point anymore, but you got your history lesson on how I got into it and sort of where I'm at today with it as well.
Yeah, I honestly forgot the question too, but you packed so much into that, I guess, monologue that one of the things that you mentioned was at that 30 years old, you thought that you couldn't make any changes to your career. And I've been through that too, right? Because we've never been as old as we are like right now. So we always feel like we're just old, but
Yeah.
we're not, we're still
Yes.
young.
Yes. Yeah. You reflect back, like, I can't believe I thought I was old when I was 32, right? And I know when I'm
Yeah,
45 and be like, I can't believe I thought I was 9. So yes.
exactly. So, I mean, what made you make that jump to get to become self-employed?
Uh, so interestingly enough, like I was in a career where I was enjoying the type of work I was doing. I was enjoying coaching. I was enjoying the learning and development side. And I would say the learning and development side that I found I wasn't enjoying was just the super tactical, okay, I need to build out this program and I have to build like that part wasn't as energizing for me. It was more identifying what the needs were and building the strategies, but actually like doing the building was just less energizing for me. And and what I found, so part of why I moved into coaching, I talk about this all the time, but part of why I moved into coaching was because of that emptiness I was feeling with consulting. And through my coaching program, I discovered this, I think, in my first course that I took, which was the concept of ikigai, which you've probably heard me talk about in a coaching session
Mhm.
or right when you were in my group coaching.
Yeah.
And so it's the concept of it's a Japanese concept that stands for reason for being. And I know you know what it is, but just
Mhm.
to share the concept,
Sure.
and it's the intersection of four things. So what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And in my consulting world, I was doing what I was good at, what I could get paid for, and what the world needed, but I was missing what I loved. And when I
Mhm.
moved into coaching, I was checking that box now. So I was checking all four boxes, but I found that I wasn't in the right environment. I was really energized at first because I was so energized by the role, but I found I was working so hard to change the culture I was in to make it more growth focused and learning focused. And and it was in many ways, but it was also very de-energizing because I would work on all of these things and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. This is exactly what we need." But then we'd have bad managers that wouldn't implement it, or we'd say, "Oh, okay, we're going to do a watered down version of this," and it would barely move the needle. And so
Yeah.
it felt like I was doing a ton of work that was getting watered down in ways. And so that was starting to feel de-energizing. And I was trying to change the environment to make them value these things more or do more of these things. And there's so much work that I was putting into that. And I finally came to the realization where I was like, I thought I needed to change the environment I was in to essentially enhance it or make it something that I thought it needed to be. But what I discovered was that I needed to change to a new environment rather than trying to change the one I was in. And so that was what helped me make the leap was dabbling in, I was living in both worlds for a while where I started my business while I was still in corporate. And I was like, gosh, this environment is helping me grow so much more. It's insanely uncomfortable. I would cry because of how uncomfortable, like, right, I'd like go to bed at night and I'd be like crying because I'd be like, I'm so far out of my comfort zone. I can't even see it anymore. And so it was insanely uncomfortable. And, but I was realizing that like, I was growing personally, I was growing professionally in a way that I wasn't in the environment I was in. So it's like, I need to change the environment I'm in instead of like being on this hamster wheel of trying to change my corporate environment to make it better. So that's ultimately, I think, what gave me obviously there's many factors, but that from a mindset perspective, that's what helped me make the leap is realizing I needed a new environment that I could thrive in.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about being uncomfortable, and I mean, did you ever try to go back to chase comfort, or have you just kind of embraced being uncomfortable?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me think about that. I do chase comfort in my head, if that makes any sense, but I force myself. So in my head, I'm like, oh gosh, I just love to slow down. And I'm strategic thinking like you from a CliftonStrengths perspective. I need a
Yeah.
lot of time and space for thought. I love to
Mhm.
think, and I have no time and space for thought right now. If an opportunity comes my way, I'm saying yes. I'm acting, I'm not thinking. I'm like more is more. Okay, yes, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. And so I'm chasing discomfort in my head where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wish that I could like have a month where I'm not doing a bajillion things, but I'm forcing myself out of my comfort zone to say, like, you will have that time for thought, and whatever that looks like for me. But right now, I need to keep pushing. And so even in my mind, if I want the comfort, I'm not allowing myself to, I'm chasing it mentally, but I'm not like chasing it in reality, if that makes any sense.
It does, because I went through that that same thing just like 2 days ago when I was putting my kids to sleep and I was just sitting there thinking, there's just so much going on. I don't know how I can handle all this. When is it going to slow down? But then you think about, okay, well, this is where you're going to grow. This is just another level. So
Yeah.
just kind of embrace it. Stop trying to stop trying to be comfortable.
And I will also say though that I think that I've noticed as being an entrepreneur, and maybe this is just the circles that I'm a part of, that there's so much of this like part of growing is, I don't want to say plateauing, that's not like the right word, but like it's not, you shouldn't always be grinding and always be pushing yourself and be at a 10 out of 10 in your discomfort. Like, right, it should kind of go like this. Like you still grow, but like if you're always like this, like
Yeah.
you need time to have whether like rest or restoration or whatever, like that is a necessary element. And I don't agree. Like it's like going to the gym. If you worked out 7 days a week, you would not see the same results as if you have a rest day or whatever. I'm going to the gym 0 days a week. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have, so like comfort, I think gets a bad rap. And so but I think that there are like right now might not be is not the right time in my life to take that restoration period and right a restoration period, whatever that looks like. But I do think that that is necessary. It's just what point that comes at and what that looks like for each individual person is going to vary. So right now I'm not in a place where comfort makes sense, but do I hope to get to a place where I feel like I have some level of comfort? Absolutely. But then, I'm going to live there for a little bit and then I'm going to push myself to be uncomfortable again. And I feel like that's just how it goes. At least like that's from my perspective. I think that that's healthy. And the type of discomfort you're going to choose is going to be different. Right now, I'm choosing discomfort of doing a million things at once. Maybe the discomfort that I choose next is slowing down and focusing on one really big project that, right? You know what? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm doing the best job of describing it, but I always worry that like discomfort gets a bad rap among entrepreneur, or comfort gets a bad rap amongst entrepreneurs, but rest and restoration is important. It's just, when can you take it at what phase in your life? And that grind is very real early on as an entrepreneur.
That's hilarious because I just think, I mean, I think I'm not moving fast enough. And I think it's just because I don't know if this is the truth, but activator's my number two. So then I always want to keep moving and moving, but then my green brain wants to slow down and think about things a little bit more. So then I get frustrated on both sides. If I'm not moving fast enough, activator gets the activator in me gets frustrated. And if I'm moving too fast, then my green side gets frustrated.
Yeah, at 100, that's how I am with my achiever, is my number 5, but my top 3 are green, and they're deep. Like, I like time for it. Deep thought. I'm like looking at your strengths. I'm like, are you high intellection? Yeah, you're high intellection too. Like, that likes that space for thought. Green in general
Mhm.
likes that, especially intellection. And yeah, I have achiever that's like, go, 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 more is more is more. And so
Yeah.
I'm living in my achiever energy right now, which is serving me in some ways, but I'm neglecting my intellection. I am, like, I'm neglecting some of that, and there's a cost that comes to that. So, and it's never a perfect balance, but like, they definitely are going like this right now, where my achiever's like, absolutely not intellection, there's no space for you. Over time, my goal is for them to look like that. And same, like, as you're high achiever, high activator, so you have that like go, accomplish, do, but your like baseline needs are more around the thought. There's just not a lot of time to think when you're a newer, not that you're a new entrepreneur, but right, you're new to having this be your sole focus, and not
Mhm.
having a W-2. So there's not a lot of space for our greens these days, John. And that's hard.
Yeah, that is the tough part. But it's embracing it, I guess, right?
Yes, yes. It's just, no, it's a period, it's a season, whatever the case may be,
Yeah,
but it is important to make space for them when you can, and find that integration of the themes, rather than like the push pull that is
yeah,
really common to happen.
yeah. See, there's times I go into these conversations with you not really knowing that I'm going to come away with something or not knowing what I'm going to come away with, and that's something that's super helpful too. Instead of find a way to balance the two and have them work together versus the constant battle of go, slow down.
Yes. Yeah, it's very hard, and honestly, I have to work on it all the time, and I can't say that I've figured it out myself. But I am aware of it, and I try to even give myself like, I don't know, a break for my intellection, where I'll like, I have this really weirdly works for me, where I have one of those what is it called? It looks like a noodle for a pool, but it's for like stretching and working out. Like, you roll a
Oh
foam
yeah,
roller, foam roller.
foam roller. Yeah, yeah.
So I have like a longer one that I have like a herniated disc up like by my neck. So I'll like lay on the foam roller, and I'll like spread my arms on. It
Mhm.
feels so good, especially because I'm at the computer a lot. And I'll
Yeah,
lay it on that, and I'll do like a calm breathing exercise for 5 minutes. And I find that because I'm doing this combination of something physical with my body that's distracting while I'm listening to this like breathing exercise for 5 minutes, it like recharges me. I feel like that's like my intellection having like something get fed. And I'm like, okay, I'm back in action. So I actually learned this yesterday from my therapist, which is really helpful. And as I'm saying this to you, I'm like learning something where I'm like, oh, I think the reason that works for me um, is it helps to calm my busy mind, because I'm doing a couple things at once. Like, sitting and meditating does not work for me. It never has. I tried it
Mhm.
for 2 months straight. It did not work. My mind is too busy. It just, like, it works for some people. It doesn't work for me. And I feel like
Yeah,
mainstream is like, you have to meditate. No, you don't have to meditate. You do have to find ways to calm your mind. And so what my therapist was saying, she's like, you have a busy mind, which I do. I'm guessing you do too. Like, a lot of mental cognitive activity.
yeah.
And she was saying what can be helpful for like that recharging, the restoration, is if you do things to almost like distract your mind, so you don't have the space to be like ruminating or thinking or whatever. And so she's like, yeah, like if you're sitting and like, and right, you're trying to have like a recharge moment, blow like a fan on your face because your mind will be like distracted by that like feeling of the wind on your face while you're trying to do a breathing exercise. And I think that's why my foam
Okay.
roller thing works because like I'm distracted by the feelings in my body that are happening from like this like intense stretch while I'm listening to a meditation. So it really restores me. Um, so I don't know. I just
Wow.
think that that's really cool, a cool concept. If you have a lot of mental activity, if you are somebody that's high intellection and just a lot of green, finding ways to recharge yourself that are like, don't allow your mind the space to ruminate because you're like, okay, I'm listening to this breathing exercise and I'm stretching and it kind of hurts a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's hilarious because I tried the meditation too, where I sit there and then I'm just fighting my brain. Okay, you're supposed to be thinking about nothing, but then you think about something else, and then it just keeps going back and forth. So I will have to
yes.
try that.
Yes, yeah, in whatever capacity that like you definitely have to experiment. Like for me, walking and listening to podcasts still doesn't work. I still get distracted, but like other things that like the stretch with the calm, like the calm meditation app and like just a breathing 5 minute breathing thing that really restores me. And so like when you're out of your comfort zone, you still have to find those like restoration moments where you do feel comfortable. You do feel like, okay, I can exhale for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I even wrote down breaks, so I know to give myself some breaks.
Yes, yes. It's
Yeah.
hard. And then when I schedule them, I ignore them. But usually it's like, okay, I have to go, I'm going to a call, right? Like I have a call. Let me before I, it's real actually really helpful before I have a call. I'm like, before I get on this call, let me lay down on this foam roller for 5 minutes. So that's like it's almost like I've created like a cue for myself before I have a call to do this because I know I'm gonna be on the call and like this, you know. So I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
gotta stretch.
Yeah, I've thought about time blocking, and that's something that I want to do because I'm listening to Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time right now.
Yeah, it's really
But
good.
just the thought of blocking your time, I just feel like, I don't know, there's just so much chaos. How do you schedule everything? How do you schedule your day minute by minute?
It works for some people, and I certainly tried. I even use an app. I think I don't know if I told it called Todoist. I can't remember if you were on a call where I was, if I talked
I
about it in a
haven't
group
heard that
coaching
one.
call.
Yeah.
I've used it for a long time. I love it, and it integrates with Google Calendar. So like I can add stuff to my to-do
Oh,
list where like you just type in a Todoist, um, prep for call with John Chan on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And when I type that in, it adds it to my to-do list in Todoist to say it's like a Wednesday thing, and it adds it to my calendar. And so it's again like I'm low consistency from a CliftonStrengths perspective. It's hard for me to keep up with it, but I love having it on my calendar and right, and you can like drag and drop and like, oh, I was supposed to do this today. I'll do it on Friday instead, and you can just drag that
yeah.
stuff around. So that works the best for me. But yeah, I look at stuff on my calendar from a time blocking perspective, especially if it's like self-care and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to breathe right now, like snooze, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yes. So time blocking, like that's the concept with strengths too. It's like find what works for you. And it's helpful to like, okay, like Dan Martell, I listened to his too and I loved it. There's so many things I took away from it. And it's helpful to experiment with different things. But if it's not working, if it's de-energizing, if it's like taking more energy than it's giving, then it's not for you. You're probably not working from your strengths. And there is a method you can find. You just kind of have to experiment, commit, like I'm gonna try this for a month. If it's not working, I try something else kind of thing. Um, so yes, but it's not easy, and I wish time blocking worked for me. I go in phases, but generally speaking, it's really hard to keep up with, especially when you're busy. If it's not your natural modality of organization,
Yeah.
it almost creates more stress to be like, I should be time blocking or I should be doing these things and I'm not. So sometimes just giving yourself the mental freedom to say like, oh, well, I could be time blocking, but I'm choosing not to because I have other stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Um, Man, we've gone on this huge tangent, which has been super helpful. Uh,
Yeah. Yes, I know. I'm really good at that, just that. So I'm sorry for taking us down these rabbit holes.
oh no, I mean, I got a lot of I guess they call them gems from this, so it's been super helpful for me at least. Um, so on this journey to self-employment, what's the biggest pro and what's the biggest con?
Um, the biggest pro, I guess it's like there's a freedom was the first word that came to my mind, and that freedom comes in a lot of ways. Like the thought that the harder I work, the more money I can make is very energizing. And I'm not somebody that's like really motivated by money, but the thought of like the harder I worked in the corporate world, the more money somebody else makes. I was like, I'm going to be working a lot anyway. I may as well benefit
Yeah.
from it, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I would say honestly, that's the biggest pro is that freedom, that freedom in a lot of spaces. Like it's still, if you're somebody that's hardworking and all of the things with which entrepreneurs are, there's sometimes where it doesn't feel like freedom because you're just like grind, grind, grind. But that freedom to know I do have the choice for the things I want to prioritize. I do have the choice to like work more or take on more and make more money for that. That's just very energizing for me. So that I found that to be the biggest pro. The biggest con, um, is also kind of like it's partially freedom. Like it's like the biggest pro and the biggest con, I guess, is freedom because, um, right, two things. It's like things are just very unpredictable. So free with that freedom comes like a lack of predictability. And that's been hard, especially with me and little kids. Like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm traveling every week for the last 4 weeks and I really don't like doing that. I want to be to a place where I'm only traveling once a month at most. I don't like being away from the kids for like again, that's just for me work travel I want to keep to a minimum. So it's like yes, like there's freedom, but sometimes because of that freedom you're like just choosing more and more and more, and that variability can be really hard. Even though I'm not a routine person, like a person that has routine in their life in any capacity, it's still the variability from month to month, whether it's like aspects of my business. Oh my gosh, this month I have 20 things going on because I've opted into everything. And next month, I don't even know what next month's going to bring. I'll worry about next month. Next month,
Yeah.
that freedom can be a con just from like a headspace perspective because I'm constantly like, okay, what am I doing? More is more. How can I take on more? That kind of thing. And then when I'm doing it, I'm like, I took on too much, but I have to do it all anyway. Um,
Yeah, that is a very good point. Freedom is nice, but it also causes more headache.
Yeah, I in the short term, in my head, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
a long-term play. It's like short-term pain
Hmm.
for long-term gain. Like my goal is
Yeah.
for that freedom to look different. It's just a short term. I've had my own business for a year and I'm still in the trenches. That's not what I'm trying to say, but like I'm in the thick of it. And I've met with other people, they're like, oh yeah, year two, like when you get to your second when you get through your second year, it really starts to like shift and we'll see. We'll see. I'm
Yeah.
1 year in and I'm telling you, it's just like, right, I'm still in the more is more phase.
Well, I see everything that you're doing and things that you're kind of changing and moving things around. Um, it's very cool to watch from my side, my
Thank you.
perspective. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for mindset, we had talked about um, embracing discomfort. What other mindset issues have you had to go through in self-employment?
Um, so as soon as you said that, there's like one point that I want to make about discomfort too, that I think it kind of ties to the self-employment piece, which I'll always say choose the right discomfort, meaning we are told you have to time block. You have to wake up at 5 a.m. and take an ice
Yeah.
bath. What you like, this works for me. You have to do it this way too.
Yeah.
Um, and or right, or even like there's studies that show that blah blah blah, even when you're not getting like this pressure on social media from entrepreneurs, there's still so many things that like you should do this or you should do that. And there's like so many shoulds of what it's supposed to look like. And so I always say choose the right discomfort because if as an entrepreneur, that freedom that you have can be like, oh, okay, I have this freedom. So it can almost be overwhelming. You're like, well, I have to do it like this person. They told me this is the way it has to look. So you almost like you restrict your freedom because you're like, well, okay, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. I'm just going to, like I say, if it's sucking the life out of you, if it's de-energizing, if you're like, I'm trying it this person's way and it is, I hate it, but I have to do it, right? Like that's choosing the wrong discomfort. The right discomfort is like it should still feel like you're doing the hard work, but it should be energizing in other ways too. Like it should be um right, it shouldn't be like taking the wind out of your sails. It should be like, okay, this is hard and I'm going to keep going. And that's like where I'm at now, where I'm like, this is very hard. I am still uncomfortable, but I feel like I'm choosing the right discomfort because it's getting me closer to where I, not only where I want to go, but who I want to be. And the wrong discomfort is like, is do I want to be carbon copy of this person? I don't know, right? Or like sometimes I feel like we see what other people have accomplished and you're like, I'm going to follow their path. And choosing the right discomfort is like you can get to the same destination, but create your own path to get there that helps you pull on your own strengths, interests, talents, etc. Um, so that's one piece as far as like the entrepreneurial journey and oh my gosh, Jen, I'm so bad. I'm like, what was the question again? This is
Um,
welcome to my brain these
mindset
days.
hurdles.
Mindset hurdles. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that's one is like thinking you have to do it the way somebody else did it because you see their destination and you want it. And that part is great. You don't have to change the fact that you might see somebody else's destination and want to like right like I work a lot with like a Pace Morby for example or Vina Jetty and it's like oh I want to do multifamily the way Vina does or I want to do creative finance the way Pace Morby does. Absolutely, that's great. It's just like but don't try to be Pace, don't try to be Vina. That's like be you and find the tools and the resources and the skills that you need to grow and develop so that you can get to that destination. And so that's the number one thing that I would say on the mindset piece is like once you find your destination, create your path to get there that's customized to your strengths, interests, talents, abilities, etc. Um, I don't know if there's a number two thing that I would point to. I think that that one is so big. And honestly, the other ones are kind of things we've already talked about, right? Where it's like find your ikigai or the things that energize you like that makes a big difference. And even finding the opportunities for like restoration because it's such a grind and it is hard for your mindset and you might feel like you're not supposed to rest but actually like it will help your mindset if you find those moments that fill you up and they give you energy so that you can keep going and keep grinding it out. So I think that those, the number one is the choosing the right discomfort piece. The other ones are more like do things to keep your head in the place that it needs to be so that you can keep going.
yeah, absolutely. Rest is important. Even if you want to just keep going, you can't go 100% every single day. It's just not possible.
It's right. And even redefining, yeah, like sometimes it's like, okay, what 100% looks like might be I don't know, 60% work, 20% family time, 5% you time, and I don't know what the other 15% is, right? But whatever, maybe it's
Yeah,
80% work, 15% family time, 5% you time, whatever, right? But
yeah,
it's like the 100 like giving 100% um is like giving 100% to that 80%, but like 100% of your time it gets spent in different ways.
yeah. That is so true. I think Jim Quick had a post where it said showed consistency. If you have 20% today and you give 20%, you've given 100%. But then it doesn't account for the 80%. What are you doing with that time? And you're right. You should be hanging out with family, friends, uh, doing something that energizes you. Rest, right? Um,
Yes.
so yeah,
Work is not, we're not like, I don't want my gravestone to say, here lies Rosie, she worked a lot, right? Like, that's just not,
yeah,
do I work a lot? Yes. Do I work really hard? Yes. Is that going to change? No, but the way I work is probably going to change the balance that I create in my life for it. And like, yeah, for me, relationships are paramount. And I'm not in a place right now where my relationships are mostly my family. I don't have a lot of space for friends. I have a lot of friends, but right, I see my best friend like once every 3 months, right? It's just like there's not a lot of space for that in my life right now, especially with young kids, as I know you know,
yeah.
but there will be. And it's just like it's just a season, but it's like, yes, relationships are important. So how do I prioritize feeding that and spending time with my family and being present with them even though my head is in a million places and that's really hard being a parent as an entrepreneur. A parent, especially of young kids, as an entrepreneur is really challenging because you're pulled in so many directions.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we're getting close on time. I want to make sure that we talk about Clifton Strengths
Yeah.
and your coaching. So what is Clifton Strengths?
Yes. So CliftonStrengths is an assessment that was created by Gallup. A lot of people know Gallup for their global polls and surveys. And Gallup is better known in the corporate world as opposed to the entrepreneur space. But they created an assessment called CliftonStrengths. It used to be called Strengths Finder. So a lot of people know it by that name, especially if they were in corporate and they took it there. But it's called CliftonStrengths, and it's an assessment that looks at the things you do think and feel the most of. And so the assessment says, okay, we're going to rank all of the things that you do think and feel the most of. And we're going to say, here's the top 10 things you do think and feel the most of. And then we're going to rank, like, we're going to stack rank against the other things. We're going to say, these are the bottom things that you do think and feel the most of. And so by taking the assessment, it helps shine a light on those things. It's like, okay, we've now said these are the 10 things you do think and feel the most of. Let's pour our energy into growing and developing those things into strengths. And those things at the bottom, because they're the things you do think and feel the least of, those will never be areas of strength. Don't try to say, okay, how do I get those higher? It's to say, okay, I don't naturally do think and feel these things. So how, when they are necessary for me, what's a strategy I can use to fill that gap? And so, but there's so much research that Gallup has done. That's why I love this assessment in particular, is because it's backed by Gallup. It's rooted in so much research. It's the only assessment that I have experienced that is rooted in research. And I'm not here to talk garbage about Myers-Briggs, but it was like made up in somebody's kitchen. And I guess you could say everything is like made up in this world, right? But I'm like, it's with Gallup, it came from a place of research. And even the person that created it was like recognized by the like American Psychology Association, right? Like it's rooted in positive psychology. There's a ton of research that's gone into it. And so I've used and experienced all of the assessments. This one is definitely my favorite. And it's because it says like what you have is enough. Let's help identify what you have. And then through things like my coaching, let's help you understand how to use those things intentionally. And honestly, even if you don't coach with me, Gallup has a ton of resources to help you learn those things as well. Coaching is just an accelerator, like anything. It just helps you get there faster. So that's CliftonStrengths. I know we've worked a lot with it together, but that's the coaching I do, whether it's one-on-one or in groups, or even the content that I put out in my Facebook group or on Instagram is all around helping people understand their strengths more and understand what to do with them and how to use them.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you talk about the strengths and weaknesses, I think a lot about you remember Kent He, right?
Yeah, I love Kent.
Yeah, so he was telling me that I don't believe this, but his consistency is low or something like that.
Yes, yes.
But he leverages, I mean, he had it underwritten. He still does a Zoom every single day, which I think is insane. He's on like 370 some days. So over a
Wow.
year. Yeah. And I like what he's done with his Clifton Strings because he knows that his consistency is low, but he takes his top 10, he somehow tricks his mind or however you say it into becoming consistent, right? And I just think that's super helpful because for me, if I had always felt that capital raisers needed to have high blues, high relationship building, and a
Mm,
lot of oranges up front, up top. For me, it's like seven greens, so it's all thinking and I think one purple and two greens or three greens. I don't know, but to me, it felt like building relationships was always a challenge for me because I was trying to do what someone like Pace does or what Vina does, where you're trying to make friends and having that one-on-one coaching with you really helped say that you don't have to do it that way. You can be friends with people in different ways, and how do you do that, right?
yes. Yeah. I remember you actually talking about that because you were like you went to a wedding, I think shortly after we coached, and you were like so
Yeah,
excited about what you learned and you were sharing
yeah,
it.
hmm
And that is a way of building relationships with your greens, right? You're thinking things. You're like, oh my gosh, I learned these things. I want to share them with
yeah,
you too. And you can learn from them.
hmm
Like that builds relationships. So it's like if you're somebody that has a lot of green thinking themes like you, the way you're going to build relationships is by helping other people. Even when you're trying to help people get their first deal, you're using your strategic mind to be like, oh, okay, let me understand what problems you're facing and help you create the right strategy or the right approach. That builds relationships. Your activator of pushing people to get started, that builds relationships, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, so it's like working from what you have so it feels natural and it's energizing versus trying to do it the way somebody else does it from their strength. It's not going to be energizing for you. It's going to feel like that it's choosing the wrong discomfort kind of thing.
Yeah, and our session really helped because at networking events, I always felt uncomfortable because I don't know what it was, but I felt like I had to talk to everybody and anybody about everything to oh, thank you. I was gonna say we should probably
Yeah,
share my
yeah.
so yeah, like I didn't realize Achiever was so high, but yeah, going into these networking events and conferences, it always felt so uncomfortable because I thought that I had to cast this wide net, woo, like 31, right?
Yeah.
And build these relationships with all the balloons that I had at the bottom. And it just never worked out. But then going to Squad Up and then going to Clever and even just networking events in general, it's allowed me, and this is directly because of what you said, it has allowed me to kind of sit back and say, all right, well, my goal is to meet 5 to 10 people. As long as I have 5 to 10 conversations with different people, everything's good. And because of that, become so much easier. And then also with the helping the newbies, um, having these strategic talks and it's been a ton of fun, right? Getting to know people, understand where their experience and strengths are, and trying to guide them in a specific way. Um, that's why I have enjoyed working with you and your coaching so much. Just it's been super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, even now, right, your video got smaller because I'm sharing my screen, but like just you, even the way that like your face lit up when you're like talking with newbies and stuff, like
Yeah.
it sounds like I could tell you're energized by it. And
Mhm.
that's the point because you're getting to share all of this stuff with somebody and it's helping them and you're getting to see the results. And it feels it just feels energizing to do the things that you do best and to get to share that. And also, I didn't know you were at Clever. I'm so bummed that I was there too, and I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I think I saw you. So I went to the wrong hotel and then I was driving up to the Diplomat and I saw you with I think Vina and Nick on the street and I was hoping to be able to catch you, but I had
Jamil, it
also
was
brought
Jamil
oh
actually.
Jamila, yeah. I was hoping to see you, but I had my wife and my kids just because I wanted them to see what is that we go through and so I didn't get to catch you, but yeah, I was hoping that but I know your circle is like at a different level, so that's why I said, all right, no problem. Maybe I'll catch up with you at some point.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm sorry I didn't run into you. Yes. And obviously when you're traveling with your family, it's like, yeah, you're all over the place too. So I know
Yeah.
that very well going to work events with kids. But yeah, we will definitely get to meet in person at some point. But I love to just hear the way that you networked and that you felt like it's again, it's like supposed to feel energizing and you show up
Mhm.
more and you share your own strengths more than if you went in with your high trying to be high woo, high includer and you
Yeah.
leave and you're like, screw this, man. Like I don't want to do this again. Like
Yeah.
it's, it might still be you still might feel like depleted from like a whoo that was a lot, right? Like those are a lot, but you should feel like you got more out of it than it took. Like if it's ever the opposite where it takes more than it gives, you're probably not working from your strengths. If you're getting more than you're giving, then you're probably working from your strengths.
Yeah, it was Venus thing that said giving yourself permission to be who you are. And I mean that's what this has done for me.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And same. And that's what I love so much about this is like I've always been so my number 4 is individualization. So like
Yeah.
I've always seen like the beauty and the like uniqueness in each person. And like that's just something where I'm like, oh my gosh, you're just perfect exactly as you are. Let's like, how do we make you more of all of the things you are? And I think that's why I love coaching so much because that is everybody is unique, and I want to help them embrace what makes them unique because there's so many gifts in that. And we don't need another Rosie in the world, right? Like it's just like we need all different types of strengths, all different types of perspectives, and the probability that you're even just you have the same top 5 strengths in the same order as somebody else is 1 in 33 million. So like even just having what, like I don't know what the statistics are of having the same 34, but it's like it's very unique. The ways that your
Mm.
themes are combined, the ways that you use them are all very unique. And I think that that's part of why I love this, is because like it's like a fingerprint, right? Like it's very unique to who you are.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, Rosie, thank you
Yeah,
so
I
much
know. I'm like,
for
is there
coming
anything
on.
else?
Yeah, no, this has been an amazing session, at least for me. It's kind of like free coaching,
Yeah,
which is kind
I
of
love
cool.
it. I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
So how can people reach out to you and how can people get into your coaching program?
Yeah, great question. So an easy way to reach out to me is if you follow me on Instagram, my handle is the Rosie Noel. I also have a free Facebook group, and that's an easy way to stay up to date on what I'm doing as far as like coaching programs I'm rolling out. Or right now, for the month of October, I'm doing like these 5-day challenges, and people can win a seat in my group coaching and things like that. So probably the best place to go is to my Facebook group. I also have a website, rosienoel.com. So I have a million things, but the Facebook group is probably the easiest way to stay up to date on when I do free calls, when I do, like I'm doing a call with Jamil later to go through his strengths live, right? Like,
Yeah.
so whether it's that or my group coaching or things like that, all of that I talk about in that free Facebook group, in addition to sharing resources, of course.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we will have those links in the description, just so everyone has them. Rosie, again, thank you so much for coming on. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I love talking with you. I feel like we green together with our Clifton strengths. So I love greening with you.
Yeah, I will definitely have some more random questions for you in the future.
Yes, you know where to find me. Thank you for having me. This was great. I appreciate you asking me on, and look forward to seeing just more of you as you continue to help people too.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, John.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you later.
Okay.